Directorate continues its probe in the National Herald case. Now, multiple properties of Associated Journals Limited have been seized from Delhi, Mumbai and Lucknow, amounting to about 661 crore rupees, along with 90 crores of Young Indian in the form of investment in equity shares of the AGL. Overall, about 750 crore worth assets have been attached by the probing agency. Now, soon after this, a massive political war broke out and Congress lashed out at the ruling BJP for the crackdown. They claim this is a clear indication of BJP's loss in the ongoing assembly polls in 5 different states, and hence the Saffron Party is misusing investigation agencies against their opponent. In return, of course, the BJP has reminded the Gandhis, who are very central to the National Herald case, of the alleged loot. Now, the National Herald case first began after a petition was filed in Delhi High Court way back in 2012, alleging that both Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi committed fraud by acquiring a publicly limited company through their own private company. Since then, many Congress leaders have also been questioned by the ED, and this has become a case of a headache, really, if not more, for the party as well as the Gandhis. But remember, nobody has been arrested so far in this case. And the reason why Congress is accusing the BJP of misusing the agencies is exactly this. There hasn't really been much further action except for seizing of properties or questioning from here and there. And the Congress feels that this is a way to pressurize them, especially as 2 key states voting is still to happen. But is the Congress right in questioning the timing of the ED action? After all, these are not raids. These are actually assets being attached, which gains a lot more severity and seriousness as far as an agency's action is concerned. And is there ever a good time for an agency to act? We take that question to our guests in just a bit, but first let me refresh your memory of the central issue concerning Young Indian and the AJL, the parent company of National Herald, the erstwhile newspaper. Now, the AJL took about 90.25 crore rupees in loan from the Congress party. What happened thereafter? Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi eventually came to own about 36% shares each in Young Indian. Then Congress assigned the AJL debts to Young Indian. Later, Young Indian took over AJL for just about 50 lakh rupees, by a payment of just about 50 lakh rupees, and in lieu of the remaining almost 90 crore, the entire shareholding of AJL was transferred to Young Indian. Now, not just that, with that, Young Indian came to acquire crores worth of AGL assets by paying just 50 lakh rupees. So this is what basically is the quote-unquote scam that Subramaniam Swamy, the petitioner in this case, has alleged. He has also alleged that the Gandhi family committed fraud by running a passport office on land given by the government to AJL only for publishing newspapers and earning rental income worth millions of rupees by doing that. In 2014, a metropolitan magistrate summoned the Gandhis and other Congress leaders in connection with this case, and the Gandhis had to file a petition to quash those summons. But in December 2015, Delhi High Court dismissed their petition and asked them to appear before court. Take a look at the observations that were made by the court back then. The court had gone on to say the modus operandi adopted to take control of AJL evidences a criminal intent. So prima facie, there was a charge and a case. The SC also stated that the main people in Congress, AGL and Young Indian are all the same, and hence the questionable conduct needs to be properly examined. The court therefore concluded that there are sufficient grounds for summoning the petitioners, which in this case were the Gandhis. Let's also take a look at the ED probe so far, or part of the ED probe so far, who all have been questioned as far as the Congress party is concerned. So Rahul Gandhi, the Congress MP, has been quizzed for nearly 54 hours in 5 days. This happened in June 2022 last year, and a huge ruckus was also caused by Congress workers when both Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi were called for questioning. Sonia Gandhi too was questioned for about 11 hours, spanned over 3 days. Mallikarjun Kharge, current Congress president, who was then an office bearer at Young Indian, was also questioned for about 12 hours over a period of 2 days. Pawan Bansal, interim treasurer of the Congress party, who was MD of AJL back then, was quizzed for 3 days. And DK Shivkumar, Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister currently, his brother DK Suresh, have both also been grilled for over 4 hours, and they had made a donation of unspecified amount to Young Indian in the past. So let me just break down the timeline once again. So this is the history of both Young Indian. It also gives you an idea of the people involved. So it's a curious case really. In November 2010, that's when Young Indian was established. It was registered by Sam Pitroda and Suman Dubey. Sam Pitroda, of course, is a close associate of Rahul Gandhi. In December 2010, Rahul Gandhi was then appointed the director of this company, and the Congress also agreed to transfer all of the AJL loans that were owed to it to Young Indian instead. In January 2011, Sonia Gandhi assumed the directorship of Young Indian. So both Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi have become central figures. By that time, they had come to control 36% shares each of Young Indian, which is why the sword is kind of hanging on their heads. February 2011, Young Indian borrowed 1 crore rupees from a Kolkata-based group. Same month, entire AGL shareholding was transferred to Young Indian. Now, this is where the crux of the alleged scam is. This transfer was in lieu of the 90 crore rupees that AGL owed to initially Congress party, and of course that debt was transferred to Young Indian. But a lot of the players, a lot of the faces are the same as the Delhi High Court remarked. In March 2011, Young Indian paid just 50 lakh rupees to Congress for that loan assignment. So the charge basically is this: by paying just 50 lakh rupees, you've come to acquire crores of worth of properties, and of course some other allegations as well. The question we're asking today though is this: the Congress is crying vendetta once again. They're also questioning the timing of this ED attachment. But is the timing issue ever valid criticism? Is that enough to take away the questions from this alleged scam?
We're right here outside the AGL house in Mumbai. This, in fact, was one of the locations where earlier Enforcement Directorate officials had visited.
Enforcement Directorate attaches various properties of National Herald in the money laundering case to the tune of rupees 750 crore, and these properties are located in different parts of the country.
RSS and its organizations led by Mr. Modi is taking away the National Herald properties through the illegal action of ED.
How rank dishonesty, loot of public property, and if action is taken, that is a negation of democracy.
Hello, Moto.
Let's go across to our guest joining us. Guru Prakash Paswan is the national spokesperson of the BJP. Adil Singh Boparai, also national spokesperson of the Congress party. Rashid Kidwai, author and senior journalist, tracks the Congress party very closely, is also joining us. And so is A.K. Dubey, advocate Supreme Court. Adil Singh Boparai, let me begin with you. The first question that will be asked is that while the Congress party is questioning the timing of this attachment, this is a reasoning that is given ever so often, not just by the Congress party, but by multiple political parties. But is timing ever a reasonable defense?
Who is the complainant in this case? And how is he aggrieved? For a criminal process to be initiated, somebody has to be aggrieved. Tomorrow, hypothetically, Shivani, somebody dupes you, you will be the complainant.
Mr. Subramaniam Swamy is the complainant in this case, and his argument is that this was a publicly listed company, so public has been defrauded. Just to answer your question.
Which member of the public is a shareholder here? Is there a shareholder who is a member of the public? So this is a witch hunt. This is a witch hunt which has been initiated by the Bharatiya Janata Party, point number one. Point number two, Young India is a Section 25 company. Now for the benefit of your viewers, what is a Section 25 company? A Section 25 company director or a member cannot take money back home. It does not mean that merely because you're a director or an office bearer of a Section 25 company that you are entitled to any proceeds or remuneration. It is an admitted fact that there is no benefit, pecuniary benefit till date to any member of Young India.
Yeah,
in a
you're
fair
arguing the
proceeding-
merits of the case, Adil Singh Bopra. I understand that. Of course, this case has been fought in courts since 2012. There's not been any relief, both on the merits of the larger case or even on the issue of summoning by the investigating agencies for questioning. There hasn't been any relief from court. So I leave that aside because I don't think any of us are, competent enough to discuss the merits beyond a certain point. The question I was asking you, though, was the reasoning of timing given. This issue of timing, that this election is coming or this election is happening, this has become almost routine in Indian politics. But we also know that every 6 months there is some big election going on or coming up. So my question once again to you is this:
I've understood your question.
is questioning the timing enough?
Well, please understand, it has also become routine that the ED, the CBI, and the income tax have become allies and fronts of the BJP. That is also very routine. Pick up the ED cases, 97% of their cases are against opposition leaders. What happened to the cases against Narayan Rane? What happened to the cases against Mr. Ajit Pawar? What happened to Chhagan Bhujbal? So basically, the ED has become a hound dog of the Bharatiya Janata Party. So on the eve of every election, you unleash them at the opposition party, hoping that people will be prejudiced. But let me tell you, the people of this country are smart, they are enlightened, and they have realized that the BJP is misusing institutions. As far as the merits of the cases are concerned, we are very hopeful and we have full faith in our judicial system.
Right.
And to the Bharatiya Janata Party, the more you resort to your dirty tricks, the more stronger our resolve will become.
Guru Prakash Paswan, your response on that. While this is an ongoing case, it is not a fresh case that has been slapped against anybody. Neither is this a raid. This is an ongoing attachment process that the investigating agencies have been doing for quite some time. And there are multiple attachments that have taken place in history as far as AGL assets or other related assets is concerned. The Congress party's main contention is you look at what's happening repeatedly across the country over the last 10 years, specifically, let's say, over the last 5 years. It's only opposition-related cases that see any progress, and a lot of it seems to happen very fast during election period.
Shivani, a very warm good evening to you and all my fellow panelists. This is immorality, illegality of highest level, and I am absolutely surprised at the shamelessness of the Congress party. Let me read a couple of lines from the Enforcement Directorate press release. And the Congress party and the leaders, I think they should also come out with a press release saying that Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Madam Sonia Gandhi, they are above the rule of law. They are above the Constitution of India. But sadly, that is no longer the fact, because today we have a government that is committed to eliminate corruption from the public life of Indian politics. This press release, and I recommend my friends from the Congress party to go through a one-page, very short, concise and a precise press release wherein it is said that the ED initiated money laundering investigation on the basis of the process issued by the Honorable Court of Metropolitan Magistrate of Delhi after taking cognizance of a private complaint. And the court has observed that section 406 of IPC, cheating and dishonestly inducing delivery of property under section 420 of IPC, dishonest misappropriation of property under section 403, criminal conspiracy under section 120B. So we have to make this very clear that whenever the Congress party, it suits them, what did Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Madam Sonia Gandhi said? That we are not aware of the thing, but Mr. Motilal Vora took care of all the transaction. Now let me read the statement of Mr. Arun Vora, who is a Congress MLA, who is the son of late Mr. Motilal Vora. Mr. Arun Vora has said that these are baseless allegations. Rahul ji cannot make such allegations against my father. We have to understand one simple point, Shivani. The Young India is a company, is a special purpose vehicle, which is obviously the biggest beneficiary of the entire deal. They are owning more than 2,000 crores of property. And who owns Young India? 36%
No, but
of
Adil
the
is saying
share
this is a
is owned by
non-for-profit
Mr. Rahul
company,
Gandhi.
so nobody can eventually derive any benefit from those assets.
Shivani, you know the relevance and significance of a non-for-profit company, but the people of India, they deserve to know who owns this non-for-profit company. The people of India must know that 36% of the share of Young India company is owned by Rahul Gandhi. Another 36% of Young India company is owned by Madam Sonia Gandhi. And Young India is the biggest beneficiary of the entire scam. So therefore, the biggest beneficiaries, Madam Sonia Gandhi and Mr. Rahul Gandhi.
Well,
Then where is the point?
on the issue of benefit, on the issue of benefit,
impropriety of the highest order.
Right, you didn't answer my question. I'll come back to you in just a bit. On the issue of benefit, before I go across to our other guests as well, Adil, one benefit that has been, brought in front of the court, which again was taken cognizance of the court, was the misuse of the properties in this case. Now, you may say you can't take these properties in your private name, you can never liquidate them as a private individual, so you can't benefit from them. But they were being used and rented out, and that income can be considered as wrong income, as the court also opined.
That income is being utilized to run National Herald newspaper.
Which only came to being after this case was filed, which was revived after this case was filed.
Secondly, when I was going into the merits, you stopped me from going into the merits. But I have a question for you and for the other panelists, and a larger question for all your viewers. Where is the ED when it comes to Narendra Tomar and his son? He's been caught on camera asking for bribes running to the tune of 1,000 crore rupees. Why is the media and the BJP maintaining stoic silence? That is videographic evidence. Where is the ED? The ED forgets that there is one Narendra Tomar and there is a video which is in public domain. The person on the other side of the video says he's been asking for money. There are allegations of hawala and allegations of movement of money to Canada. Where is the ED? Where is the media?
Okay. Let Guru Prakash Paswan answer that.
Muster the same courage.
I was going to ask again, Mr. Paswan, the question of timing, and what seemingly the opposition suggests is one-sided use of the investigative agencies under the BJP government against only a particular set of parties and never really touching anybody concerned with the BJP. Please answer, Mr. Paswan.
Shivani, before I address the two questions that you have raised, let me also complete my observation by quoting the observation of the court. The court has also observed that Young India was created as a sham to convert public money for personal use in order to acquire properties worth 2,000 crores. It is not the observation of a BJP spokesperson. It is the observation of the court. Point number one. Point number two, about the question of timings, you yourself answered, Shivani. India is a vibrant democracy. Every 3 months, every 4 months, there is an election. But does that mean the agencies should stop working?
But what about the one-sidedness, the alleged one-sidedness of the agency action?
Tomar, what about Tomar? What about Tomar?
No. We have to, no, I did not speak when you were speaking, my friend from the Congress party. You should have the grace and patience to listen to other people as well. This is the absolute shamelessness of the Congress party as far as the ED is concerned. Shivani, let me make this very clear. More than 90% of the Enforcement Directorate cases are non-political. ED has attached properties worth rupees 1 lakh crore. So where does politics come? I don't understand. And I can give you 10 other names where Enforcement Directorate is doing their proceedings against BJP leaders as well. Mr. Dilip Jaiswal, Mr. Ajay Kumar, there are so many leaders. I did not speak when you were speaking, sir. I did not. No, sir. Shivani, ऐसे नहीं होता है. Shivani, I did not speak. Shivani, ऐसे नहीं होता है.
You mentioned some names. One by one, please. You mentioned some names. Guru, please repeat the names. The names is what the Congress spokesperson is asking for.
No. Shivani, you cannot. Shivani, I did not.
Yeah, I would request all of you to not interrupt each other. I shouldn't have to do this, but I will make that request once again. Let's not interrupt each other. You will get your opportunity to pose your questions.
Please give us those 10 names.
Yes, Adil, you said that 5 times already. We heard you the first time. Let him go ahead. Let him go ahead so that we can hear him. Please. The first time he was doing so, we couldn't hear him. Let him go ahead.
No. I think, Shivani, this is the true sanskar of the Congress party. When they are bereft of any logic, any factual assessment, they interfere. This is the intervention of the Congress party. This is the real sanskar. This is the feudalistic mindset of the Congress party. This is the sense of entitlement of the Congress party. You keep on interfering, sir, but you are not above the rule of law. You are not above the rule of law. I will give you 10 names. Mr. Ajay Kumar, Mr. Dilip Jaiswal, Mr. अरे भाई आप सुनो शिवानी ऐसे नहीं होता आप उनको बोलने
नहीं गुरुजी आई एम गिविंग यू टाइम ओके
इधर म्यूट हिम
No, I'm not going to mute anybody. I request everybody else to now patiently. I'll request everybody else to patiently listen. Yes, Guru, go ahead.
have to understand that the Congress party is suffering with a sense of entitlement which no longer works in this country. You are not above the rule of law. You are not above the Constitution of India. I will give you 10 other names. I will give you 1 lakh crore of properties that has been attached by the Enforcement Directorate. You cannot shoot the messenger. BJP leader Ajay Singh, BJP leader Dilip Jaiswal, BJP leader Dilip Kumar, all of them are suffering that. Even Mr. Mukul Roy, when he was in the BJP, he was being questioned. So you cannot have this argument. You are not above the rule of law, sir. You are not above the Constitution of India, sir. You are living in this country. You have to abide by the Constitution of India. You cannot run away from that.
Okay,
You
I have to pull away from both of you. I'm sorry, too much time. I have to go across to our other guests as well. As far as, let me go across to A.K. Dubey first. A.K. Dubey, as an advocate, while a lot of allegations are made when, let's say, an investigative agency conducts a raid, the processes for acquiring or attaching properties has to be different. This has to be a little bit more serious and cannot be done willy-nilly just because an agency wants to do something. Am I correct? Could you tell us what the agency needs to do to be able to ratify the attachment of properties?
See, this is a case which is instituted under the PMLA. The Enforcement Directorate, the powers of Enforcement Directorate have been upheld by the Supreme Court. Second, here the question is that how can a political party bound by the provisions of the Representation of People Act loan money at zero interest rate for commercial purposes? And the loan to Associated General Limited did not violate the provisions of the Act, as the loan was to revive the newspaper with no commercial interest. Section 25, my brother Adil Singh Vora is saying that yes, it's a company which is registered for the trust for the charitable purposes. But here the question is, which is the whole controversy erupted on the basis of a court order, which travelled up to the High Court. Even the taxation matter went up to the Supreme Court. And now the second is, why did the AJL fail to pay off its debts by selling of some of its prized properties? A simple question every Indian would like to know, that how a debt of 90 crore can be retired for a consideration of 50 lakhs. These are the questions.
Right.
As now, Shivani, very right, that nobody can say that they are the guilty. They are the accused persons. But as like an individual Indian citizen, they should also, instead of trying for political vendetta, anybody, whosoever the citizen of this country, should cooperate with the investigation. That is what the law in a democratic nation requires.
Yeah, but this is politics too. So politicking over a case will also happen. Let's leave that aside. All sides do it. But fundamentally, whether that argument will suffice both in the public court of opinion and leave aside whether it suffices in a legal court. Mind you, no political party actually goes to court and says this. In many of the high-profile cases where political vendetta is alleged in public, it is never alleged in courts because that's not a legal argument you can give. But on that, let me go across to Rashid Kidwai as well. Rashid Kidwai, do you think during election season, which we're currently in between, all the 3 states have already voted, 2 are left, this is going to work as some sort of a sympathy card that the Congress and especially the Gandhis are being quote-unquote attacked by virtue of this National Herald case? Or do you feel that this no longer works as far as the public opinion is concerned?
Yeah, Shivani, I think you have raised a very pertinent issue. Unfortunately, of course, either way, for or against, it does not cut any eyes in the eyes of the public, because political parties are primarily responsible for it. As Mr. Adil was mentioning about the case of Mr. Narendra Singh Tomar and his son and that alleged conversation in a video, we also heard Prime Minister talk at length about Chhattisgarh, about that Mahadev app. Now, the problem is that law should be seen, enforcement of law should be seen as, uniform, universal, and away from the political glare. But since political parties and individuals tend to act as per their political whims and fancies, therefore it's not making any difference in the eyes of public. The National Herald case is sub judice, so I will not comment on the merit of the case, but prima facie reeks of some kind of political this thing, because Shivani, by no stretch of imagination, a process cannot become punishment. You see, the ED has to make a distinction whether Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi and others, are they witnesses, are they accused, because they are public figure, they have roots in society, they face election, they are stakeholders in a political arena. I'm not holding a brief for them. I'm just saying that I would have said the same thing if it was about the BJP. So that's the thing. And you see, Shivani, there is a three sides of this. There is the issue of propriety. Maybe the Congress, in case of National Herald case, did indulge in impropriety. There is a legal aspect, as Mr. Dubey was saying. No, legal in the eye, through the prism of legality, we cannot look at judge it politically, and that's the problem. And there is, of course, a political side that we all are seeing. The ED is seen as a political instrument at the time of, and that's where your original question of timing comes in.
Yeah.
While I agree legally, the ED should not bother about the timing, but we live in real world. We know the elections are going on. We know it's a huge thing.
But would it matter in the elections? That's fundamentally the question I'm asking, Rashid Kidwai. In Rajasthan and Telangana, would it matter that an ongoing case has seen further attachment? This is not a new case, it's an ongoing case.
Yes, I agree with you, but the attempt is that is what I'm saying, it leaks of political vendetta, because ED is doing this at the time of election.
Ongoing elections. Okay. You made one very interesting point that agencies should be seen to be acting neutrally as well. I have 1 minute left. I'll give 30 seconds each to both our political representatives. Guru Prakash Paswan, please, on the issue of neutrality, are the agencies facing the danger of not appearing to be neutral?
Shivani, I am reminded of 2013 when Supreme Court Judge Justice R.M. Lodha said that CBI is a caged parrot. I am reminded of former officer R.V.S. Mani who said questionable things about the CBI. I am reminded of former Union Home Secretary G.K. Pillai who said the same thing about Hindu terrorism. I am reminded of former President of India Pranab Mukherjee who said that there were orchestrations behind every agency, every inquiry that was happening. We have to understand one simple thing. This is a new law in Indian democracy. The so-called first family of the Congress party who claims to be the custodian of the freedom movement. National Herald is associated with freedom movement.
Okay, I have limited time. So let me give 30 seconds to Adil Singh Bopara as well. Adil, fundamentally, the charges have to be explained and the charges have to be explained in court. And for 10 plus years now, there's been no relief. That also goes on to show something, right? It couldn't be political vendetta alone by a party or its agencies, despite the fact that this matter has been in courts for 10 years.
This is an attempt by the BJP and their allies at headline management. Point number one. Point number two, this is a curious case where there is no benefit to any individual, where there are no proceeds of crime, where there is no
2,000 crores.
One by one, please. Only Adil, please. I have 10 seconds.
Rahul Gandhi is not above the law.
I'm sorry, only Adil, 10 seconds,
you have
please.
to understand.
The BJP spokespersons lose their voice when somebody asks them questions about Narendra Tomar. They should at least respond, where is the Enforcement Directorate when it comes to Tomar and his son?
Okay, I've run out of time.
Merely become a hound dog of the BJP, which is used for political purposes. Having said this, the BJP is rattled. The BJP is rattled and the defeat is staring them at the face.
Okay,
hence,
we'll see.
Shenanigans in cahoots with their allies.
We'll see about that, whether it will indeed have any effect as far as the voting pattern or people's preferences in Rajasthan, Telangana, etc. is concerned. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Time for a very short break. On the other side, we get you an exclusive conversation with American sociologist Professor Salvatore Babones, very popular in India, on his new paper which is looking at the recent trend of, quote, weaponization of the caste agenda, not in India, but in America. Stay tuned.
Hello, Moto.
Co-powered by
fingers crossed. We are hoping that we will get that very good news that we all have been waiting for the last 11 days. Within the next few hours itself, probably by tomorrow morning or by tomorrow afternoon, we are expecting. In fact, the rescuers are also expecting that they will be able to successfully get all these people out who are stuck inside. At this point in time, the biggest update that we are bringing to our viewers is that the auger machine, which had started working late last night, has finally been able to dig through the debris and almost 34 meters of debris has been dug through, which means that 6 pipes have already gone inside. The welding process for the 7th pipe is underway at this point in time, whereas if you talk about the entire length of the debris that is being predicted at this point in time by the rescuers is of 54 meters. So approximately 20 more meters needs to go through. The work is ongoing in full swing. I'll just try and show you in the visuals. You can see over here the work is absolutely going on in full swing. The welding process has already started. Within the next few hours, the 7th pipe will also be pushed in, which means that the length of the debris, the drilling length of the pipes would reach somewhere around the 40 meters mark. So yes, a lot of work is ongoing. The breakfast this morning has also been given to the workers. On the other hand, if you talk about the other plans, the border road organization has successfully been able to build the entire road to the vertical top from where the drilling process could start. But yes, that could still take a lot of time. But keep that aside, the biggest ray of hope, the light at the end of tunnel is certainly getting brighter. We are hoping to get that very good news very quickly, very soon. The workers inside who are working relentlessly to make sure that this rescue operation is completed at the earliest, they are also very optimistic. Certainly a sense of happiness and a sense of positivity is something that can be sensed in the air over here, because remember the time when the auger machine broke down and the work was stopped, there was definitely a lot of gloom over here, and hence over the last 2 days the engineers over here have worked around the clock, made sure that the entire structuring inside the tunnel is done, and post that the drilling process also starts. It took almost 50 to 60 hours for them to actually prepare the entire ground, and post that this operation that has now started is going on in full swing. But still, fingers crossed, there still is no issue, but no issues that they have encountered at this point in time. But yes, the last 20 meters is something that is the most crucial. Out of this 20 meter, at least the last 10 meters is something that is the most crucial part of this operation, because remember, there could be heavy machineries that could come in the way of the pipes that are being drilled in. But yes, the analysis has been done. The electromagnetic analysis and the geophysics analysis of the debris has been done, and the rescuers are hopeful that they will be able to negate through those machines as well. So yes, the next few hours is going to be very crucial. Approximately till the 45 meter mark is where the rescuers expect that they could encounter problems. Once that 45 meter mark is crossed, then the road ahead is definitely going to be very easy for them. So yes, the next 10 meters that is going to be drilled through now, that is going to be the most crucial part of this entire operation, which means over the next 5 to 6 hours is the time when we are expecting that this entire drilling through the 10 meter of debris is going to get completed, and post that the remaining part of the debris is going to be an easy terrain, is what the rescuers expect at this point in time. Now, since it is becoming more and more optimistic for the people, for the rescuers, that these people would be taken out safely and at the earliest, and that is the reason why the administration has now put on standby at least 20 ambulances, and if required, if the situation of anyone who is inside the tunnel is not good, then 40 ambulances could also be brought in. The work for that has also started. At least 20 ambulances have been put on standby at this point in time. So at least the last 9 days, in fact out of the 11 days, the last 9 days was very troublesome. There was a lot of anger amongst the family members because they did not feel that any sort of work was happening, because the work that was happening was not of the drilling but of structuring that was going on inside the tunnel, and that was something very scientific and technical, and definitely the kind of emotions that these people had, you can't blame them for not understanding that. But since the first visuals have come to the fore, a strong communication line has been established, these people are being allowed to speak to their family members who are stuck inside. The confidence has definitely increased, and as I told you, there is a sense of optimism now that within the next few hours all of them would be taken out safely, and we can expect that and that is what the family members also expect at this point in time. Their body language has definitely changed over the last 24 hours, I should say, and definitely the kind of progress that has been made at this point in time is something that should be cherished. But yes, fingers crossed, we are still hoping that the next 10 meters that needs to be drilled through, that can be done with all safety and at the earliest. Post that
Salvatore Babones, thanks a lot for speaking to CNN News 18. I look forward to another conversation with you on another aspect of politics, not just based in India, but overseas, but one that affects India and how India is perceived, or how people in India and overseas are perceived. You've come out with another paper of yours, and this one is titled "The Weaponization of Caste in America." This is coming at a time when we see a lot of caste-based activism, especially in American cities. Now, the title in itself is telling us a little bit about what you found. So, I want to begin by asking you, why are you terming this weaponization of caste in America and not say how is it different from actual real activism?
It's the weaponization of caste because we have no real evidence of caste-based discrimination in the United States. Of course, there's a history of caste-based discrimination in India, and I think that's what a lot of people are counting on in these American caste wars. But the effort to identify the Hindu religion in particular with caste-based oppression is something that is being done in the United States with an obvious intention to discredit Hindus and discredit India more broadly, not something that's actually trying to address a truly existing problem in the United States. I mean, let me just give you one example. In California, there was a bill attempting to ban caste-based discrimination. That bill was proposed by California's first Muslim senator in collaboration with California's first Sikh representative. Okay, so a Sikh and a Muslim, it's almost like a joke. A Sikh and a Muslim went into a legislature, and what was their top legislative priority? Banning caste-based discrimination, when in fact, caste-based discrimination is already banned under California law. The effort was purely symbolic. The effort was there to try to identify Hindus with caste-based discrimination when there's no evidence that this exists in the United States.
So one is that your paper has found that there are only about 20 to 25,000 Americans who self-identify as Dalits. So that's a very small group of people. And even amongst these groups of people, a lot of them are graduates or postgraduates. So not only are the numbers not adding up, but also their social status is actually better than the average American. So you feel like this isn't activism actually for the quote-unquote downtrodden. Then what is it?
There doesn't seem to be any broad-based Dalit activism in the United States to demand redress for discrimination against Dalits. In fact, as I said, there's virtually no evidence of discrimination against Dalits in the United States. Those Dalits who have made it to America are a self-selected tiny elite, mostly of doctors and high-level engineers and graduate students in the United States. That is, they're not people who faced a lot of discrimination in India. Instead, they're people who have been the most privileged among Indian Dalits. Now, that's not to say that Dalits don't face discrimination in India. It's to say that those Dalits who've made it to the United States, which is a tiny elite group, don't face large-scale discrimination in the United States. Yet their cause has been taken up by primarily Muslim American organizations and Sikh American organizations, the very organizations that are often associated with Kashmiri separatist activism in the United States and Khalistani separatist activism in the United States. They have taken up the cause, the supposed cause of American Dalits. It is an obvious attempt of an alliance of convenience meant to stigmatize American Hindus. And the whole culture war that's going on here in the Indian American diaspora has this flavor of people taking things that happen in India or happened in India generations ago, attempting to use those as evidence of discrimination in the United States, and then getting various American organizations to pass resolutions condemning it. When in fact, as I keep stating, no evidence has been presented that there's any actual caste-based discrimination in America.
Your paper is an interesting read from the sense that a lot of the numbers or the instances that are cited by these so-called organizations that are raising the issue of Dalit cause, and the prominent one and the one common link you found is equality labs that has been talked about and discussed quite a bit in India as well. Some of the figures that they're quoting, there is no basis for it. That some of the things that they're talking about, what would be the structure of their activism, actually has no
research value or empirical value. Tell us a little bit more about what you found. What is this activism actually based on, if not, if the numbers are incorrect?
Equality Labs is an organization that seems to be run primarily by one person. It conducted a single survey in 2016, and that survey was sent out to a variety of Dalit and other activist organizations. That survey asked people, do you face discrimination in the United States, and came up with some outrageously high figures. Now, I say outrageously high because the figures don't really correspond to reality. For example, they said that 26% of Dalits in the United States had faced violence on account of their status as Dalits. And yet another place in the same document, they said only 25% of Dalits had faced either physical violence or verbal attacks. Well, those figures simply are not commensurate with each other. On top of that, the idea that more than half, something like 2/3 of Dalits are facing discrimination in the workplace seems at odds with the fact that 80% of the self-identified Dalits who answered the survey were themselves either postgraduate educated or postgraduate students. Now, it is possible for a highly educated person to face discrimination, but when we look for what kind of group needs protection from discrimination in a country, we're not usually looking at the most successful people in the country to ask if maybe they're facing some kind of discrimination. The whole survey was a very amateurish effort that had no basis in reality, in the sense that it wasn't based on a sample of self-identified Dalits. It was actually based on an activist self-reports. So the survey was distributed via what's called the snowball method, meaning I send it to my friends who send it to their friends who send it to their friends. It was not advertised in a broad way through mainstream Hindu civil society organizations or through Hindu temples or through mainstream Indian American organizations. It was distributed entirely through activist networks. I mean, it is a completely meaningless set of data produced by an organization that only has, it seems like, one primary officer. And yet this single survey done in 2016 has become the basis for the entire movement in the United States to associate caste-based discrimination with American Hindus.
You have, of course, mentioned that there have been, a few instances that have come to light. One, of course, is the SB 403, legislation or the bill that was meant for California. Then there is the Cisco lawsuit where it was alleged that there was discrimination against, Dalit executives or employees. And similarly, one Dalit executive, not even multiple, a single Dalit executive claimed that he did not receive as much of a promotion as he deserved, despite receiving a promotion, let's be clear, but he expected to receive a greater promotion than he got, and blamed this on discrimination against him as a Dalit. So there are these 2-3 things that have happened. There's, of course, a similar move that took place in Seattle as well. How do you look at these movements? And there's been a common link of Equality Labs that you have found, and I urge our viewers to go and read your paper as well to understand more deeply. So what do you make of this movement, particularly from the angle of these groups of Muslim and Sikh organizations, particularly those that have been known to pick up issues that generally in India would be looked as anti-India activism? What do you make of this entire movement, and how successful do you think they've been?
This is clearly a disingenuous movement, and I say that because this discrimination based on caste is already illegal under most U.S. civil rights legislation. In fact, Governor Newsom of California vetoed the California SB 403 for that precise reason, that it was a superfluous law. And the framers of the law knew that it was superfluous. In framing the law, they actually said in their very first draft, we recognize that discrimination based on caste is already prohibited. This new law is simply meant to provide additional information about caste. Now, not only that, but in Seattle, and then in a series of resolutions at universities across the country, at California State University, and then in a series of elite universities, mostly in the northeastern United States, there have been resolutions to ban caste-based discrimination. Again, to ban something that's already banned. Now, the resolutions themselves have long preambles in which they associate caste-based discrimination with the Hindu faith. They associate the caste-based discrimination with India. Some of them pro forma say that caste does exist in other South Asian countries. Some of them pro forma say that caste exists in other religions other than the Hindu faith. But fundamentally, the effort here is to associate in Americans' minds caste-based discrimination with the Hindu faith. And this association is then being reinforced through textbooks. There's a big effort in the United States to write textbook descriptions of India and of the Hindu faith to associate both of them with caste-based discrimination. And all of this centers on the activities of, as well, the Indian American Muslim Council and of other, Muslim, Sikh, and connected with them Dalit rights activist organizations. It is, viewed from above, viewed from the perspective of 10,000 feet. You clearly see that the purpose of this movement is not to improve conditions for people. Everyone's against caste-based discrimination, just like everyone's against race-based discrimination. Everyone's against sex-based discrimination. There's no quarrel there. The purpose of these efforts is to create in the American mind a connection between the Hindu faith and India and discrimination based on caste. Whether they succeed or don't succeed in getting these resolutions passed, the press coverage they're receiving creates that association in the American mind. And when Hindu associations in the United States, so organizations like the Hindu American Foundation, the Coalition of Hindus of North America, Hindu Pact, when they organize against these resolutions, of course, that then casts them in a negative light because it puts them in the awkward position of seeming to oppose reforms that would ban caste-based discrimination. Of course, what they're really opposing is the association of discriminatory behavior with the Hindu faith.
But have they been successful via the coverage, etc., to kind of change the way Americans look at the Hindu faith or the Hindu community?
They've been very successful because, remember, most Americans don't give this issue much thought. If they ever read even one newspaper article about anything related to the Hindu faith, it's going to be one of these articles about effort at Harvard to ban caste-based discrimination, effort in California to ban caste-based discrimination, effort in Seattle, Microsoft, Cisco. They're attacking institutions that have high news value. They're not trying to prohibit caste-based discrimination at office cleaning companies or at security firms hiring nighttime security guards or in restaurants. They're trying to do this in high visibility organizations like Google, Cisco, Microsoft, Silicon Valley, Harvard University, Brown University, California State University, places where they'll get news coverage, and they'll get sympathetic news coverage from American journalists who generally know nothing about these issues. And the American journalists will interview both sides. But if all an American reads is one news article in a year that mentions Hindus, they're likely to have read an article in the past year that associates Hindus with caste-based discrimination.
One of your other key takeaways is that anti-Hindu activism overlaps substantially with anti-Semitic activism in terms of both strategy and participating organizations. So elaborate a little bit on this, because what we are seeing in America today is also groups who are seemingly being anti-Semitic while they are being pro-Hamas as far as the Israel-Gaza war is concerned. So tell me a little bit more about why you feel that anti-Semitism and anti-Hinduism is overlapping, because this is also something you had hinted at earlier in one of your papers, that anti-Zionism is often used as a garb for anti-Semitism, just like anti-Hindutva is used as a garb under which anti-Hindu activism prevails.
The organizations that are organizing against Hindus in the United States are largely the same organizations that are organizing against Jews in the United States, which is to say it's a combination of Islamist, and I stress not Muslim, Islamist organizations, combined in the case of India. Now, this is not the case for Israel, but in the case of India with Khalistani sympathetic organizations, combined with student human rights movements, with labor rights movements. And we see the same organizations signing on to letters that condemn caste-based discrimination. And then the same list of organizations will turn around and sign a letter condemning Israel and its position in the Arab-Israeli conflict. Literally the same groups of organizations. And often these organizations have nothing obvious to do with either movement. So, for example, in the United States, the Black Panthers, which is a Black nationalist movement dating back to the 1960s, Black Panther organizations have signed on to both Palestinian rights and to anti-caste open letters. Filipino revolutionary groups. Now, what does a Filipino revolutionary group have to do with the struggle for Dalit rights? Seemingly nothing. And what does it have to do with the struggle for Palestine? Seemingly nothing. Yet those Filipino revolutionary groups signed both sets of letters. We see the same groups of organizations. Not only that, we see the same strategies. Okay, so the strategy used by both anti-Semitic and anti-Hindu organizations is to take an innocuous sounding claim. In the case of anti-Hindu activism, it's we're all opposed to discrimination based on caste. Now, everyone agrees with that. And so they go to organizations that really don't know much about this. Academic associations, they go to student groups especially, they go to labor unions who don't know anything about this. And they say, would you sign this letter condemning caste-based discrimination? And of course, these organizations say, yes, we condemn caste-based discrimination. They don't tell these organizations what their ultimate purpose is. They tell them we're looking to ban caste-based discrimination. Well, these same organizations then go to, again, the same group of associations and say, we'd like to condemn attacks on hospitals in Gaza. Well, again, they're not saying that we want you to support Hamas. They're not saying we want you to support they're just saying we want you to condemn attacks on hospitals. Well, we all condemn attacks on hospitals. And so again, these unsuspecting organizations sign on to these letters. Then you see a website pop up that has a list of 150 organizations that have condemned caste-based discrimination in the United States. And you know what? Of those 150 organizations, 120 are overlapping with the organizations that condemn the attacks on hospitals in Gaza, right? So it's the same organizations using the same tactics on the same unwitting collaborators who are just well-meaning people, unions, student groups, academic associations, who are just signing on to what they think is an obvious cause, not realizing that they're really just pawns in a larger game of which they have really no knowledge.
So basically, there is a political agenda behind this quote-unquote activism. It isn't really activism for the sake of activism.
There's certainly a political agenda. The idea that the Indian American Muslim Association cares so deeply about the plight of low-caste Hindus that it makes it one of its major goals, one of its major campaigning goals to help low-caste Hindus, simply beggars belief. It is not one of their major policy goals. It is something they see as a way to discredit people they see as their opponents. Now, I say people they see as their opponents because there's no corresponding activism on the Hindu side. The mainstream Hindu American organizations, and I've looked very closely at the work they've done, the Hindu American Foundation, the Coalition of Hindus in North America, Hindu Pact, they are not going after Muslims. They're not going after Muslim civil society organizations. They're not going after Sikh organizations. They're simply defending their ground and promoting their own religion and their own faith, as we would expect anyone to. This is really a one-sided battle where one side is shooting at the other and the other side is taking cover, doing its best to defend itself. But it's not it's not a situation where both sides are just squabbling with each other. Now, unfortunately, most Americans are likely to see this as, Hindu and Muslim Indians just can't get along, and so they're squabbling. That's just not the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is the Indian American Muslim Council is actively seeking to discredit American Hindus.
our Indian viewers would obviously associate it also with the politics that goes on in India. For example, in India too, there are so-called Muslim groups and Dalit groups that do come together for their politics. We've seen certain Sikh groups and Dalit groups also come together for their politics. And I think what you're finding, for example, in the overseas community is a little bit of the same. What we have seen in Indian domestic politics as well, because caste is that's undercurrent that is exploited quite a bit as far as the Hindu community is concerned for politics in India, and there are various groups that come together, at the corners of intersectionality, as you may call it, to kind of make truck with each other for those causes against what you said seemingly is their larger enemy, which in this case you believe is very, very much the Hindu American community, and in India there is a parallel to this as well. But I do want to understand from you, how do you see the future of this movement?
Hindu civil society groups in the United States are winning the battles but losing the war. And I say that because although they can win these particular legal battles because the legal merits are on their side, they're losing the larger information war because they don't seem to realize that the purpose of the Muslim civil society organizations and the Sikh civil society organizations, their purpose is not actually to ban caste-based discrimination. Their purpose is to associate caste-based discrimination with the Hindu religion in the American mind. So even if these various initiatives are defeated, they nonetheless leave the impression among Americans, and I must say, especially among credulous American journalists, they leave the impression that the Muslim and Sikh and Dalit civil society organizations are fighting the noble fight to do good in the world, and they're being stymied by Hindu civil society organizations that are resisting positive reforms.
My final question to you, Salvika Babon, is in India, a lot of discussion has taken place about how the Hindu community is much vilified for no fault of its own. Maybe purely because it is the larger or the majority religion in India, and it's always been either vilified or been asked to kind of cut itself a little bit, purely because the numbers are higher. And there's a lot of activism, but there's a lot of politics that kind of plays on that as well, the Hindu religion and the Hindu identity. We're seeing a little bit of that happen in countries like Australia, in countries like UK, in countries like America. Why do you feel, as an observer of the politics both in India and overseas, why do you feel the Hindu community gets attacked so much? What is it about it that irks groups, and what is it that they want to do? Why is it that they would have this agenda against Hindu Americans, for example?
I think the mechanisms are very different in India and abroad, and that may be very difficult for Hindus to see because they may feel they're being attacked in both places, and so it must be for the same reasons. In India, let's say the internal politics in India is really all about Indian politics, and it's all about playing politics within India, getting advantage within politics within India, and that's within the country. Overseas, the reason that Hindus are being vilified is that the rest of the world does not see India as a multi-religious country. The rest of the world sees India, practically speaking, as a Hindu country. Now, I know that that's something that in India is highly controversial. I realize that India has a secular constitution and a secular state. I'm aware of all, and Indians are aware of all this within India. But for everyone else in the United States, the United Kingdom, and in Australia, India and Hindu are the same thing. Now, that shouldn't be the case. That is the case. Let's just be frank about it. And so Hindus abroad are facing attacks, not because American Muslims dislike American Hindus, not because American Muslims are seeking advantage over American Hindus in American politics. American Hindus abroad, American Hindus and Australian Hindus and British Hindus are facing attacks because the international Islamists and the international Khalistanis associate Hindus with India, and they know that Americans, British people, Australians all associate Hindus with India. In other words, the Hindu organizations and the Hindu civil society in America is being attacked as a proxy for India. Now,
That's not right. That's not appropriate. That's not what it should be. India is a secular state. Nonetheless, when Hindus become vilified in the United States, implicitly, India becomes vilified in the United States. And the goal of these organizations is not primarily to harm their own Hindu neighbors in the United States. The goal of these organizations is to harm America-India relations, to harm Australia-India relations, to harm UK-India relations. And that's something for Hindus in India really have to understand that their politics don't necessarily apply in the diaspora, just as people in the diaspora have to realize that their politics don't necessarily apply in India.
Viewers, the Enforcement Directorate has attached assets allegedly worth rupees 752 crores of the Gandhi family-controlled company called Young Indian and Associated Journals Limited. The Enforcement Directorate claims that the properties are proceeds of crime. That's how they have designated these properties. It says that these properties are possessed by the Gandhi family and that this is an illegal appropriation of public wealth. ED also says